Great. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for sending those messages in the chat. So happy to see so many of you joining us today. Welcome to the College Orientation Summer Series webinar. My name is Stephanie from College Programming and Orientation. I'm the graduate intern for the summer, and I'll be serving as moderator for the webinar today. Today's panel is Major Exploration Social Sciences panel, where the Social Sciences Collegiate Division, SSCD, is home to the undergraduate curriculum in the social sciences, and its programs immerse students in the full range of social science inquiry. Hear from current social science majors and minors about their academic journeys and experience within the Social Sciences Collegiate Division. So a little review for today. Joining us are several current students from and UCMP peer mentors here who are here to share about their own academic journeys. First, we'll have the panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll move on into a Q&A portion. We already collected a variety of questions from the registration forms, which we will first start with. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to add those via the Q&A bottom chat section of the screen. And please note you are also to see which questions have been provided and event upvote questions that you're already interested in. So if everyone could turn your eyes to the panelists now, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. Joshua, why don't you start?
Hello, everyone. I'm Joshua Weisskopf. I'm a current second year in the college. I'm majoring in economics with data specialization, statistics, and/or psychology. And I'm currently involved in religious life. I'm a founder of a startup on campus and house culture. And yeah.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. Michael?
Hey everyone, my name is Michael, and I'm a rising second year in the college, majoring in anthropology. And on campus, I'm primarily involved with the University Community Service Center in various ways, such as like the Seeds of Justice cohort, kind of thinking about like activism in potential like academic career paths. And then I also got involved in their Maroon Tutor Match as a way of like finding employment, as well as kind of becoming interested in like education justice and like being able to have a direct impact on the surrounding communities. And then I'm also in the Summer Institute in Social Research Methods at the moment through the Social Sciences Division, which allows me to do research with a professor while like taking courses and also like some workshops to kind of develop academic skills for future careers in the social sciences.
Amazing. Thank you. Win?
Hi, everybody. I'm Juan Vega. I'm from Hamden, Connecticut. I'm a rising junior majoring in economics and statistics. There might be a minor in media studies somewhere in there, but as for me and like overall what I'm involved in on campus, so I'm a student athlete. I'm on the wrestling team. I also work student employment at the gym. And then in terms of like organizations on campus, I'm involved in Peer Health Exchange, which kind of teaches health curriculum to local high schools within the region. I teach at Kenwood Academy. I'm involved in Intercollegiate Finance Journal. I also am a volunteer peer mentor for the summer. And then in terms of other things with what I'm doing this summer, I'm interning at a local customer relations firm in Chicago, helping with local communities, giving them career advice, resume advice, helping them get jobs, meeting with employers. So that's kind of my status as of right now.
Great. And lastly, Alice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alice, and I'm also a rising junior. I'm double majoring in history and law letters and society, which are in different divisions of the college. And landing on this combination of majors wasn't a straightforward journey, so I've also like dabbled in a few other majors. And apart from academics, I'm also involved in a hip hop dance crew on campus, women in law, and the music department's piano program. And I also volunteer to teach one-on-one piano lessons to kids on the South Side. And I also work as a research assistant in a developmental psychology lab, as well as in UC Press.
All right, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. Now we will move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And as a reminder, we have current students assisting with the panel today who will be sharing about their personal experiences. So please know if you have any specific questions about sequences, placement tests, or anything specific to you, we encourage you to reach out to your assigned academic advisor who can best support you. Our goal today is for you to hear from current students about their academic journey. And if we're all set, we'll just go ahead and jump into some questions. So our first question for the panelists are, how did you work with your academic advisor to coordinate your academic plan/plan out courses? And what are some tips or advice you can give to students?
I can start off with that one. So one of the big tools that I found really, really effective, I found it halfway through winter quarter. It's called My Planner in the My U Chicago account. Basically, what that enables you to do is you can sort of plan out your major, your core courses, and when you want to take them, and which courses you want to take, and what courses, like what different sequences you're able to take. And then also, in terms of like planning courses, I talked with older students and asked them whether this sequence was more aligned with my interests or that sequence. And you can also email professors beforehand to see if their classes or courses interest you.
I could also touch on that very quickly. I also would highly recommend the My Planner. I personally just use like an Excel chart. It's a bit easier for me graphic wise, but I've heard from multiple people that My Planner is a really effective tool. And especially if you're like me and kind of disorganized or you struggle to keep things in your head, it's definitely a great thing that you can implement, and it's right there in your My U Chicago. One thing that I would say on a kind of a more like holistic approach would just be really making sure that you build a relationship with your academic advisor. My advisor is Miss Melendez. She's been all 3 years. She's a wonderful person. And I think kind of establishing almost like a personal connection with your academic advisor, you know, they're going to also be checking in on, you know, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Are classes okay? Like they're not only going to be there once a semester just to help you with your schedule. They're a much more kind of fulfilling academic resource that you have. So I would highly recommend, you know, taking advantage of the knowledge that they have in building your curriculum each semester, but also just building a relationship with them in order to kind of for them to understand like what courses you might want to take, etc. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And Joshua, our next question is, how have your plans changed or ebbed and flowed over the years?
I can take this one. So like I said before, I've dabbled around in a few different majors apart from history and law letters. I've also considered the econ, psychology for a long while, English, and also East Asian civilizations and languages. And so what I did was that I took a couple classes from each major to see how I liked it. And in the end, I was really drawn towards history and law letters and society, and that's how I made my decision as well. I think it also helps to talk to upperclassmen who are in the majors that you're interested in, as well as the heads of the various departments, because they have a greater insight into like what the classes and the curriculum might look like.
Yeah, I can also respond to this. So as far as like kind of changing like academic interests, I guess I'd emphasize like for me, it's really helped to kind of just take courses that are interesting to me. Like if I see a course, like just spend some time in the course catalog and don't just look in like the major that you think you might do, like look around a little bit see what courses look interesting to you for whatever reason. Don't be afraid to like just go for a course just because it seems like it just seems interesting to you. Like I took a course last quarter in magical politics in the anthropology department that was like a little strange, and I wasn't sure it would be like truly applicable to like a future career, but I like kind of went for it, and it actually ended up being a really like grounded class, and honestly like one of my most interesting classes that I took all year, and formed great connections with the professor and really brought forward my interest in anthropology as a major. And so just kind of don't be afraid to kind of go out there, both with like your classes and with what like extracurriculars you do.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, what resources do you use to help plan for your major/courses?
So I think that's another throwback to the My Planner section on My U Chicago. I really use that. And then also on the U Chicago website, in tools and forms on like the college's website, there's another paper planning tool which I use to track the classes which I've already completed.
Another thing that I use to decide like which classes to take is to look at course evaluations and see like the difficulty of class, whether I'd be suited for it. Just like professor evaluations to see whether or not the professor's teaching style matches mine and what people have said about it in the past. Yeah.
Thank you. And on that note, on what Alice just said, how do you choose and organize your classes, or how do you know how many classes to take and in what order?
I could take that a little bit. I think that process, at least in my personal experience, has changed over my last 2 years at the college, in the sense of I think freshman year, a lot of the classes that you're going to be taking the core, you're going to be taking a lot of fundamental classes with a lot of your fellow peers. And so in that sense, it's a lot less, not difficult, but it's a lot more straightforward to kind of decide what classes you're going to take in that step of the process. But on a general note, I think that some of the most important things are figuring out what works best for you, and really reflecting on what kind of student you are. Can you do 2 heavy reading classes a semester? Are you someone that would like to take 4 classes a semester or 3? Like, they're both viable options. I learned very quickly that I'm much more successful and I learn much better in 3 courses, and that's totally okay. You're going to graduate on time. So I think learning your own kind of learning style. And then I think the other important one would also be, again, interacting with department heads, talking about your interest with them, what courses they think would be a good fit for you. They're always available, and they're always there for you. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Second a lot of what was said there. And also just like, again, like as far as making sure you're like taking classes in the right order, like staying on track for potential plans, definitely just look through the course catalog, and see like for maybe like a certain major you might need like to take a certain level of math. And so you might want to like make sure that in your first year, when you're planning your core math classes, that you like just knock those out all in a row. Or I personally just took the one math class that I needed, and because my major didn't require it, instead I focused more on doing other core requirements, such as like my physical sciences courses, because it's really nice to kind of get those out of the way early, and they're typically a little lighter as far as load if you're not taking like as many major classes, and then just making sure you're kind of on track for the future using things like My Planner, which can really help you visualize like a rough idea of what it would look like over the course of 4 years. Can really make it a little less overwhelming.
Great, thank you. What is the best or most common classes to take as a first year?
I'd say most first years, well, you all have to take Hume, but most first years also do math or calc throughout their first year, because a lot of majors require the calc sequence, and it's nice to just get it out of the way and do it with a lot of your first year peers. I'd say about half the first year class also takes Soc, which is nice to just dip your toes into like another area of the core. I took it first year, but I also have plenty of friends who took it second year. So there's flexibility within that. And I think first year is just like a really great time to focus on the core classes as well, maybe take a couple of major classes. But if you're not sure about what your major is, there's always room to just focus on core classes, talk to your core professors and your academic advisors about that to try and figure out what you want to do in second year.
Yeah, on that point, sort of in a different vein, I took really interestingly, not related to my major, unrelated to my major, but they were just very interesting. Like, there's a super interesting class. They always publish these interdisciplinary options, like the big problems or the no classes. And so if you have a third or fourth spot that you don't know what to fill it with, it's always an interesting time. And you'll learn a lot about a subject you might not have known about, or a subject you're really passionate about. So that might not be a very known thing, but I recommend it from my experience.
Thank you, Joshua. So what is the class registration / pre-registration process like?
I can answer this. I'd say it's pretty straightforward, in the sense of they, the college will send out an email saying when pre-registration is happening. It usually occurs the last, someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's the last 2 weeks or the last week of the semester prior to the semester that you're pre-regging for. And then you just select your classes. You select by priority. So if you have a really strong interest in one class, you might want to put that class first. Or also, if there's a class that's extremely competitive and there's not a lot of seats, which does sometimes occur, especially with a specific professor or a very like a base class that a lot of people end up taking, you also might want to put that higher. But I think that going over your pre-registration again with your academic advisor and them helping you balance out that kind of aspect of interest versus competitiveness to get into the course is a really helpful thing. And I think that's something that all students learn throughout all 4 years here. But it's a pretty effective, you will always end up with enough courses. And yeah, it's a pretty straightforward process.
Yeah, just to second a lot of what was said. Like another thing to take into account, I mean, you'll be ranking your courses based on your priorities. So obviously, like a big part is how much you want the course, and then also like the other part is like how popular is the course. If it's a very popular one, you might rank it higher. And even if you're really interested in this other course, if you're pretty sure that you're like not going to have a ton of competition for it, you might be able to rank it lower. Like I took modern Greek as my language course, and I really wanted that as my language course, but the class doesn't fill up. And so I was able to rank it lower and put something else that I really wanted to take, maybe not as much, but that was going to be far more popular, up higher. And it's a little bit of a guessing game in that respect, but your academic advisor is able to help you a lot with that. And I guess the other thing to take into account is also timing. You want to make sure that your classes don't overlap if you're requesting them highly. And also, like, if you care what time you take calculus, you might want to rank it higher. And you're more likely to get the time you want if, say, you want to take it in the afternoon and not the morning.
Great, thank you. So if you're undecided, how can you use the core to best figure it out?
So
Um,
I came into the college. I'm sorry, go ahead. All right. Yeah, so I came into the
okay.
college.
Go, just go.
All right. Okay. So I came into the college undecided, and the core an opportunity to experience the different types of classes. And I experienced similar class types, but that was a way for me to really decide what I wanted to do.
When did you have anything to add to that?
I had a hard time hearing Joshua, just a little bit, but yeah, to forward that. So when I came into the university, I was pretty sure about economics, but I had no idea about my interest in like film study and how that would work. So I think that in my personal experience, something that came in very helpful and that I would recommend to future students would be to make sure that you're diversifying your core. And I know that sounds kind of ironic because the whole point of the core is to be diverse, but I know a lot of students that they end up taking like the most kind of like mathematical humanities course, or like the most or like logic based humanity course, or they end up taking their art courses are kind of very similar, or their social course is more about like social research or political science. And I think that what I would recommend is to make sure that like even if a class might not immediately catch your eye, such as a great example for me would be like Intro to World Music. Like it didn't immediately catch my eye. Give it a chance. You always have that add drop period. So you're not locked into a course if you start taking it in the first 2 weeks. And really just explore within the core, because there is, if you have a very specific set of interests, there's a very like easy way or traditional way to tailor it to that interest, but there's also a way to diversify your core and kind of pursue different courses, especially within your art requirement. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. So what advice would any of you have for first years regarding core course selection?
I think I would just echo what Wynn said and yeah, diversify your options and try things that are maybe outside your comfort zone or things that you haven't tried before, because the core is an opportunity for you to do new things outside of your major. Your major is intended for you to specialize in something you're really passionate about, but the core is for breadth of like knowledge. So one of my favorite classes that I've taken here is my social core, which I chose randomly. I just picked classics of social and political thought, thinking it would be like, okay, it'd be a fun time. And it turned out to be like my favorite class so far. It was definitely very challenging, and the readings were something I'd never done before, but I'm really glad I took the class. It definitely helped me with my writing skills, and also like I think parts of what you learn in the core can also be applied to your major.
Yeah, very similar to what's been said. Just like it can be kind of tempting to like try and rush through the core to get to the major stuff, and kind of see it as like a barrier to like taking other classes. And so definitely just like make sure that you're taking classes that are maybe a little out of your comfort zone, and like just taking what's interesting to you. Like I took philosophical perspectives for Hume because I was like, well, philosophy sounds cool. I like have no background and knowledge in it, but it's good to like be able to like use the core classes to try out things that you think you might be interested in, that could then like now I know I don't want to be a philosophy major or minor, So it can be useful in that respect as well. So just like really put the time into it and take classes that are going to be interesting. Don't try and like just get through it.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, did you all finish your core classes during your first 2 years, and what soc would you recommend for an economics major?
I can kind of follow up on this because I was actually kind of wanted to touch on it earlier, but I also took classics and I absolutely loved the course. I think it was probably in all 3 semesters. I think it was probably one of the hardest classes I've taken here. And in terms of economics, it might seem kind of separate, but I think a lot of the logic that has to apply to it and being able to articulate that, especially in an essay sense, is something that definitely applies to the economics major, and your ability to communicate, your ability to have those thought processes in those gray areas. So I would highly recommend classics. And then as for finishing your core within the first 2 years, I was extremely core heavy my first year. I took Hume, Social, and Civ. And I'm still not done with my core. I have to take language next semester or next year. So I think it is possible, and depending on your placement test, it is possible to finish your core within the first 2 years, but I wouldn't focus on finishing your core in the first 2 years. There's no rush. Those courses aren't going anywhere. So yeah, that would be my take.
Great advice. Thanks, Wynn. Another core question, how accommodating are different core sequences outside of your major? For example, taking a physical sciences core classes for humanity/social sciences major.
Speaking specifically to like physical sciences, I mean, there are a lot of courses that are designed for people not planning to major in the physical sciences. Like I took Earth as a Planet as one of my physical sciences courses, which is like designed to give you like more of a like general knowledge. Like after the course, you'll be able to read a paper on physical sciences, specifically from this course on like planetary science, and like understand what they're saying, and you have the basic knowledge to like have a conversation with someone about the topic. But like especially in this course, the goal was not to like turn you like into a physics major or a physical sciences major, or to turn you away from the physical sciences. It's really just about like expanding your knowledge and giving you like a taste of something else. So yeah, instructors are super accommodating, and they totally understand that you're probably not going to major in the physical sciences if you're taking that kind of course.
Thank you. So this next question is for those of you that are a double major or minor. So if you are a double major or minor, can one class count towards both?
So yeah, it can. If you're having 2 majors and in the course catalog, it should say all the other majors that the class will count towards. If it's double listed, then you can count it towards both. However, you can't count a class towards a major and a minor. You can count them between majors, between minors, and then the core is totally separate.
Great, thank you, Alice. These next set of questions are about academic involvement. So some of you already mentioned other organizations that you're involved in, but what opportunities exist outside of the classroom in regards to my division and/or major?
I mean, one example would be like the Summer Institute in Social Research Methods program that I'm in right now, is like within the Social Sciences Division and more of like a research-oriented experience. And they'll send out a lot of like mailings that'll like emails you can sign up for like lists that'll give you lots of different opportunities outside of the classroom. And then also you can kind of just like go to your professor's office hours. Like if you have a professor that like you enjoy their class, like go to their office hours, they'd love to see you. And you can talk to them about like maybe you want to like you're interested in what they're doing for research, or you want to hear what they think about like different things you can get involved with. And so they can really be good mentors in addition to your academic advisor, as far as helping you plan like extracurriculars that are more within like the social sciences division.
Thank you, Michael. How do you get involved with research, and how difficult is it to get a research job / opportunity on campus?
So I can answer this one because even though I'm not a psychology major anymore, I am still a research assistant for a developmental psychology lab here on campus. And it was super easy to get involved in research on campus. I emailed a few of my professors that I'd taken classes with, and you can also check out like the department's website. They'll usually put a list of labs there, and you can see which ones align with your specific academic interests within the field, and email. Usually the lab manager is in charge of all these recruits. And I would also recommend joining the list hosts of the department, because sometimes they'll send out offers at the beginning of each quarter for people to join in on research or join in on a lab as a research assistant.
Thank you. And what about summer internships and experiences related to your major?
I can answer this from an econ perspective. I think that it's also extremely easy. I think that, well, first off, I think the school's pedigree holds a lot of weight, and you will see that pretty significantly when you're applying for internships. But I would also say that once you get to the school, you'll discover something called Handshake, which is basically it's a professional platform that has career services and career opportunities. And you will see constantly listings throughout the year. You're almost guaranteed to, if you check every day, to see like something every week or a few every week. Like there are thousands of postings, all looking for interns. You can like set it or filter for your age or your year and your major and your interests. But I think that overall, your overall status as a U Chicago student carries a lot of weight. And then also, don't be afraid to use your network, which is you're going to develop throughout the year, throughout your years here, to also help you find internships, whether that be clubs, extracurriculars, even career services, just your career advisor. Like, utilize all of it, and a lot of the times it will solve itself almost. So yeah.
Thank you. How important is it to build relationships with your professors, and how do you do that?
I think it's really important to build like a good rapport with your professors, because they're also really cool people. They're humans at the end of the day, and they want to talk to you and get to know their students as well. So I'd recommend going to office hours, even if it's for a class that maybe is not super applicable to your major. It's still really nice to get to know them on a one-on-one basis. And I think it's really helpful because office hours give you a chance to, one, get to know them, and two, maybe ask them questions that aren't super appropriate for like a big group or class setting. And personally, I've gotten to know some of my professors just like by showing up to their Zoom office hours. And it's really helped, like, especially this year with all classes being online, for me to get to know them better.
Yeah, I would totally second that. Like, definitely office hours is the best tool. I mean, additionally, like, participate in your classes, like, like obviously like show interest in the class, but also like office hours are a great way to kind of get to know your professor beyond that. And I know like for me that was like very like intimidating, especially at first when like you show up and like it can be a little bit like I'm just like here. And I mean, if you like don't know what to talk about, you can definitely just ask them about their research, because pretty much every professor would love to just like talk about their research and explain it to you. Like it's obviously something they're interested in, and I mean every professor that I've talked to is doing something like really fascinating. And then you can kind of, that can sort of break the ice. You can talk, maybe you're interested in becoming a research assistant, maybe you just want to get to know the professor a little bit better. But like having professors that you're on good terms with, that you could ask for a reference from later or just for advice, can be super valuable. So definitely office hours are an amazing tool.
Great, thank you. And another question we have is, how does study abroad affect your studies and track completion? If nobody here has done study abroad, we can move on to the next question. Sound good?
I mean, I can talk about my plan for it. I haven't actually studied abroad, but there are lots of opportunities to study abroad, like during the summer. Like I'm personally gonna be applying for a foreign language acquisition grant in modern Greek to go like independently go to Greece over the summer and study language there. And so I'll be trying to get a grant from the university for $5,000 to go do that. So there's like lots of opportunities like that where you can like study abroad in the summer if like you were trying to double major and it's really just not fitting, with like something like a civ abroad, which might be a little bit more common. So yeah, there's lots of ways to like make it work for you, and move it around.
Great, thank you. One more question that we have is, how does your career counselor help you know what kind of job you can qualify for when you graduate? I'd love to take classes that are interesting, but my parents will surely want to know what kind of job I can end up with.
Yeah, so I can take that one. So I have a really good relationship with my career advisor. We talk at least twice a month and or email back and forth. And I think that it's really about your internship experiences and knowing what you want to do when you graduate, and then aligning that sort of like with your major. And in addition to your major classes, there are plenty of opportunities to take electives. And so really working with your career advisor to get to know your interests and sharing your interests with them, and then taking advantage of internships and different opportunities like tracks and other things that can help you decide what you want to do when you graduate, and then they'll be able to best help you prepare to get the job that you want to get.
Thanks, Joshua. How did you decide on your major and extracurriculars, given that there are so many different options and opportunities at UChicago?
So I think I might have mentioned this a little earlier, but I can repeat it again. I just tried a bunch of different classes in areas that I might be interested in. I also talked to a lot of upperclassmen that I knew to see like which classes they found the most interesting in their majors, and I tried those as well. I also had a really good relationship with some of my core professors, and so they got to know me as like a student and like my learning habits, and so I asked them for recommendations on classes and maybe like what kinds of majors would suit my academic type. And so that was really helpful as well. And I wouldn't be too worried about getting it right straight away I definitely didn't. And I know a lot of people who come into Chicago not knowing exactly what they want to do, but there's definitely room for flexibility and change within selecting a major.
Thanks, Alice. Did you come in knowing the general area of your major? If not, how did the courses/core curriculum help you figure it out?
So I did come in thinking anthropology as like an idea, like it was kind of just like what I said, but I wasn't really sure. And I mean, kind of like Alice said, like you can really like taking classes is really there's no better way to like figure out if you're genuinely interested in something. I mean, you can certainly come in with like no idea, and the core can give you a little bit of like a direction, and then like your core professors can like kind of talk to you about your interests in different areas. But yeah, I mean, so I came in thinking anthropology, and I ended up focusing on core for my first 2 quarters, and then spring quarter, I took 2 anthropology classes, both a little bit different, to kind of just get a feel for the department. And I decided that I really enjoy it and I want to keep going with anthropology as my plan. But I mean, even as I go, like I'm talking to my professors about like what that's going to look like for me, whether it's the right decision. But yeah, I mean, definitely just talk to people. You've got your academic advisor, you've got your professors. Just maintain good relationships, and people will be more than willing to help you out.
Awesome, thank you. Are morning or evening courses more preferred? Do weekend classes exist?
I don't, I can answer this. I think that's like an entirely determinant on who you are as a person. I've taken a lot of morning classes. I've taken a lot of afternoon classes. I prefer morning classes because they force me to get up earlier and I feel like I'm more productive throughout the day. But that's my own personal circumstance. I know a lot of people that they have academic or they have even athletic obligations that they're not out of practice until 8, 9 p.m. For them, it's really, really difficult to be up and ready to go and in class by 9 in the morning. So I think a lot of that has to do with your own circumstances, and you'll find that out very quickly once you get on campus, and also the kind of person that you are. In terms of weekend classes, as far as I know, I've never seen a weekend course. I'm again not entirely sure on that, so I don't want you to quote me, but I'm pretty sure that they're only during weekdays.
Great, thanks for sharing, Win. Is the atmosphere in social sciences competitive?
I mean, as far as my personal experiences, I mean, it can be competitive in certain ways just because that's just sometimes how things get. But I mean, I don't know. I've never really felt any like excessive pressure to like compete with other people in like my social sciences courses. I mean, I think all of my professors have really fostered environments in the courses that are very like positive, very like discussion based, which I think is really valuable. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in other departments, but like based on my core classes, like the social sciences have been a little bit less like a little bit more discussion based and a little bit less like kind of testing. Although that's obviously like very variable throughout. But overall, from my experience in the courses I've taken, it's been a very positive, like very discussion based, like constructive environment where you all get to like kind of discuss your ideas within the context of courses, and really kind of develop ideas generally, which I really enjoyed.
I was hoping I could touch on this real quick because I think that being an econ major, I think a lot of people immediately jump to the conclusion that it's one of the more competitive kind of majors on campus. And I think that there's two like kind of elements of competition. So I'm not sure which this individual is referring to, but there's the sense of like competitiveness in that's like actual, peers like competing with one another. And then there's just the competitive environment that's just kind of innate to being around so many amazing, accomplished people. And a lot of the second one is much more like self-deviated than you think. A lot of it is a lot more just like you're thinking that. In terms of the first, which is I'd say traditional competitiveness, I don't think that there's a lot that I've seen. For the most part, you need to take into account that like if you're sharing a major with someone or you're in the same department, you're oftentimes going to be taking a lot of the same courses with that person. You're going to have a lot of discussions with the same person, class time with the person. So I think if anything, you're more likely to build up more like friendships than competitions within kind of each of your courses. And I'd say that overall in most departments, and especially in the econ department, a lot of that stigma is not there. So.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions here. What kind of math/programming skills have you found useful in your social science courses at UChicago?
So I haven't taken any social sciences classes with programming. I've taken a biology class in R where we coded in R, and I knew Python beforehand, so it was a little beneficial. The syntax was sort of similar. But I know that for example, for economics, data science, you do have to take a coding sequence. And so one of them's in Python, I'm pretty sure. I don't know the exact nature of the coding sequences, but there is some coding involved with the economics major.
Yeah, to further that, considering I'm a stat and econ major, I have a lot of experience with, stat courses, and a lot of that has to do with learning the R language as well. I'd say that even if it's not required for your major, your social science major, I think that R is definitely a very, first off, easy language to learn. I had no computer experience coming into college, and it was pretty easy for me to pick it up. But also just extremely like effective and very like useful to know. A lot of the times in social sciences, you're going to be looking over some sorts of data. In econ, it's very common, and being able to know programming or just know traditional skills to analyze that and be able to interpret it is very helpful. So I would say at some point or other, I would recommend learning R if it's not immediately necessary just on your curriculum.
Thank you. Could you speak to the balance between academics, clubs, and social life? How much time do you devote to each of these categories?
Yeah, I can respond to that. So I mean, I'm a person who likes to kind of stay busy. I like to like kind of plan out my day, and like I like to just do a lot of stuff so I don't have too much time. Like I don't like to feel like I have time to waste necessarily. Like I plan, like I can plan a nap, so I'm like relaxing, but like I don't want to just like sit and procrastinate. Like I do like to keep to the schedule. So I, as far as timing, I mean, I was a member of the cross country and track team, so that was like 2 hours a day gone. And then I had a couple club commitments that were about like 3 hours a day. And then coursework was probably like 3 to 4 hours a day, depending. And so like that's a fairly full schedule. And then as far as like homework, I would spend like anywhere, depending on the day, anywhere from like 3 hours to maybe 4. hours working on like just like preparing, whether that's doing readings. But like that was the kind of schedule that I liked for myself. So you can definitely kind of modify things. I mean, I definitely recommend using like a calendar app to kind of plan things out. Just think about like when are you going to eat meals? Make sure you're eating meals, making sure you're like taking care of yourself as well. But also just like, yeah, I mean, just stick to a calendar. At least that's what's worked for me. And just make sure you're doing stuff that's reasonable. But yeah, definitely you can have very different experiences and still enjoy yourself.
Great. And this next question is our last one. How did you end up choosing the data science stream in economics? Did somebody, I believe somebody said.
Yeah, so I'm like chose the data science stream, but it's not set in stone or anything. It's just like the plan that I'm like contemplating right now and thinking about right now. I haven't really taken any of the classes for it yet, but it's what I'm interested in, sort of like the confluence and the intersection of math and economics, like with the statistics. And so that's why I selected that one. But you don't really need to decide at the beginning of your first year in the first quarter. And so that's my logic in picking it. It's more like a placeholder.
Great. Thank you, Joshua, for sharing that. Well, our time is running out, and I believe we answered all the questions. So I just wanted to give a big thank you to all of you, the panelists, for giving us your time today, and for all of those who showed up to listen to our students. A copy of the recording will be posted on the communications from the college section of the orientation website. But if you have specific questions about a major, please visit the UCMP directory and search for peer mentors via majors. And Whitney just sent that link in the chat. But besides that, thank you all again, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.